Hey, how's everyone doing today? My name's Alex Lerman with LowKickMMA, and today I am joined by the monster, Kyle Nelson. So, Kyle, how's everything by you today?
Doing great. I'm here at the UFC PI. Just finished a bit of a workout, and yeah, now relaxing.
Great. So, is your body feeling good? I know we're about, what, 3, 4 days removed from the fight on Saturday. So, I just want to make sure, you're physically feeling good, mentally feeling good as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I made it out of the fight with basically no injuries, like a little bruise on the top of my head, maybe. Um, yeah, but that's basically it. I took a couple low kicks in the fight, but my leg, like again, I didn't really get sore during the fight. It's been fine since the fight. So yeah, I mean, I'm doing really good.
So that fight, that fight on Saturday, you showcased a lot of your striking, your wrestling, and jujitsu, and it was an extremely competitive fight in my eyes. How would you grade that performance?
For myself, maybe like a 65, 70%. Um, I think I did get to showcase some different again, like with the striking, with the wrestling and the jujitsu. I just think I just showed like glimpses of each of those. I think even in like the jujitsu, I was able to kind of take his back. I got close to the rear naked choke there. I thought all that went well, but I think I could have slowed it down a little bit more, been a little bit more controlling and throwing more punches, a little bit more ground and pound. In the wrestling, again, I think it all generally went well. I just took a little bit too long. Like I was in some solid dominant wrestling positions, especially against the fence, where I felt like I was in control, like I had the octagon control, and I was kind of waiting for him to try and do something to then finish the takedown. Whereas maybe I should have just pressured more to finish the takedown. And then in the striking, same kind of thing. Like I felt like I was landing, the cleaner, harder shots. I rocked him in the second round. But again, I think I could up the pressure a little bit, up my numbers a little bit more, start throwing more combos. Again, I was just a little too comfortable. Again, because I felt like I was winning, every scenario, every situation, the jiu-jitsu, the wrestling, the striking. Yeah, just I felt good in all those things. I think I could have, stepped all those things up another level, and that probably would have resulted in a finish or at least a more obvious win in my favor.
Gotcha. So when you say up the pressure, do you think the weight cut down to 145 had anything to do with that? Do you think it affected your cardio in any way in that instance?
No, no, my cardio felt great. Yeah, like I felt like again, like I watched the fight again this morning. In between rounds, I wasn't breathing heavy. I remember in the fight, feeling great. I didn't feel slow or sluggish, didn't feel out of breath. So yeah, I think as far as my conditioning and everything at 145, it was great. Yeah, I just should have maybe pushed a little bit more.
Yeah, you certainly looked well conditioned, at least from where I was watching at home. Didn't really notice any difference, so that's good. So did anything surprise you that your opponent Choi did in the fight? Were you did he do anything that you weren't expecting and were a little caught off guard by?
Uh, I was expecting him to do more. I thought he was going to be more aggressive. I thought he was going to, throw more punches. I thought he was going to come forward. Again, I was really expecting, some big right hands, some power. I was expecting him to have a better jab. So if anything, I was surprised. I think I maybe put him a little too high, like on a pedestal, and I was like, he's got power, he's got this, he's got that, and then we got into the fight, and again, maybe I kind of shut him down, with the wrestling and with some of my power. Yeah, I was surprised at how, I guess, tentative he was, and yeah, that was my biggest surprise. Again, he came out through some leg kicks that we haven't seen, like those low calf kicks. We haven't seen a lot from him, but they weren't like I didn't find them very effective. Other than like it seemed to really impress the commentators. They really loved it, but as far as like damage um, in the ring or it didn't slow me down at all. If anything, it allowed me to set up some of my offense and push forward off of them. So I don't think they were an effective strike. I mean, they maybe scored a couple points, but yeah, I don't think it was you know I don't think it won him the fight, which is I kind of think the only argument for him as far as offensively was.
Understood. I like that you said that about the commentators. Sometimes I watch on mute just to, no biases or anything like that. So that's funny that you said that. So now let's get to the headbutt. So round three, that headbutt happens. A bunch of controversy surrounding it. Can you just walk me through from your perspective, what happened?
Yeah. So again, he was on top. He had kind of like a can opener or like a tie clinch where he's holding my head. Um, and then yeah, it just seemed like he backed up, pulled my head, and pushed his head forward.
Mhm.
Uh, Again, it didn't seem like he wound up and threw it with everything he had. Um, but I don't. It didn't seem super accidental because he was literally holding my head and brought his head to my head. So I maybe he was really tired and lost his balance. I don't know. The headbutt, I mean, it left a little bump on my forehead. Was nothing serious. I think again where the controversy comes from is the ref taking the point, and I think everyone watching is like, oh, that goes a little headbutt. Um, why would he take the point? I think it falls back on some of the warnings that the ref had given him before that.
Mm.
The first takedown I hit him with, he grabbed the fence, so the ref had to warn him to let go of the fence. There was a few wrestling exchanges against the fence where I had his back and I had my hands together. He was grabbing inside my gloves and pulling my gloves apart, and the ref warned him I think 2 or 3 times about that, and he kind of just continued to do it. So I think those those warnings kind of compiled. And I think that's maybe why the ref took the point for the headbutt. I don't think it was necessarily just the headbutt. Um, I think it was all the other kind of infractions leading up to that that maybe some of the fans didn't notice. Like, and I don't know exactly what refs are taught to do. Like, if you're supposed to just take a fence grab, it goes in one category. Glove grab one category, and then a headbutt separate category. Or if you accumulate them and you count them together, when somebody's done several infractions, and then you take a point. Whereas I think people are like, you only headbutt them once. Glove grab is a different thing. Fence grab's a separate argument. So you kind of get you get one buy for every kind of infraction. You do one low blow, one fence grab, one this, one that. It's only when you do two that maybe the crowd thinks, okay, now it's justifiable to take a point.
Yeah, it's certainly a kind of a gray area there, right? And personally, in your opinion, do you feel that the point deduction was deserved?
Again, if we're just talking about the headbutt, I would say no. Um, Again, it's hard to say it was completely unintentional, but obviously there wasn't a lot of damage or anything done by it. Again, just a little bump on my forehead. Um, but again, if we add up all of the infractions, like the glove grabbing, which I think played a big factor because for me to, in my wrestling exchanges, he was able to, again, grab the gloves and start to peel my hands apart, which made wrestling and the takedowns much more difficult. So I think, if anything, the glove grabs probably, you know, hindered my performance and worked out better for him than anything else. So I think when you add them up, I think it's fair that he lost a point because of all of the infractions. But again, if we're just looking at just the headbutt, I don't think it was worthy of a point deduction.
Hmm. So after the fight, Dana White announced that he was going to pay out Choi his win money, and he even said that the headbutt for the point deduction was insane. Um, and being that Choi got paid out his win money and that you didn't, even though the decision was a draw, how do you feel about this situation?
So again, I think Dana's just looking at the headbutt. I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing Dana there anywhere, so I don't know where he was watching the fight. But again, maybe he just saw the headbutt and he's like, "Oh, that's BS," and he didn't take into account the glove grab, the fence grab, and some of the other stuff. And again, I think if he went back and watched the fight again now, I think he'd have a different opinion, especially like knowing the headbutt, knowing all that infractions. If you watch for them now, you're like, "Oh yeah, well, that's kind of blatant." And I think as far as control time, again, I think in everybody's memory, they're like, they kind of forget about the control time. They think about those calf kicks because the commentators really enjoyed those. And again, I think I landed a few calf kicks that I think were more damaging than all the calf kicks he landed. They just didn't get as much hype from the commentary team. But I landed one that completely buckled his leg. I landed one that literally spun him in a circle. Um, so I think, again, of the calf kicks, I think I won the calf kick battle. I mean, my opponent was on crutches after the fight. He had to go to the hospital. I went out and got pizza. I've been walking around, hiking, working out, living my best life here in Vegas with my fiance. Whereas my opponent had to go to the hospital. So I think that alone speaks enough, as far as damage in the fight, because that's another thing. Some of the keyboard warriors are saying, "Oh, it's about damage and this and that." Well, I'm here, no bumps and bruises. He had to go to the hospital. Again, I think I had the control. I think I came close to finishing the fight with that choke. I rocked him really bad. If the fence wasn't there, who knows? He might have fell down. I landed that flying knee. I don't know. When you break it down and you look at it, it's the more I think about it, the more I watch it, the more I heavily believe that I at least won 2 rounds. And then with the point deduction, I don't see how the judges could give it to my opponent other than him being kind of a superstar, a lot of hype and stuff, and I think that kind of fogs a lot of people's vision when they're watching the fight.
Yeah, certainly with the long layoff that he had, and the fight originally supposed to be in Korea and then moved to the Apex. So given this decision and given that you think you won the fight, would you want to see a rematch with Choi in the near future?
Yeah, absolutely. I know like the UFC is not really big on like rematches. I think like where we're at, it's generally like title fights and stuff like that. So do I think it's likely? Probably not. But I would love to do a rematch. Again, I think I set myself apart from my opponent through the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu, and the power that I landed in the strikes. And I think with another 3 rounds, we would just see more of a discrepancy between my skill set and his skill set. Again, he's a good boxer, good kickboxer. He's got some speed and stuff, but I still don't see anywhere in the fight. If we carried that same fight on for another 3, 4, 5 rounds, I don't see him doing anything different that's going to come closer to finishing the fight. Whereas, I was always putting him in dangerous spots and hurting him, with strikes.
Yeah, it's interesting. It did seem like he was holding on at some points, right? Just barely, surviving, and you were putting the pressure on and really forcing the action.
Yep.
So, you said you would like to see a rematch. If not, though, if you want to throw out some names, who would you want to see next?
I wanted to call out Cub Swanson after
Mm.
Choi. I thought, Swanson beat Choi in, fight of the year. And I thought, that'd be awesome. I'd love to get a chance at Cub Swanson as well. I know he's bounced around a little bit. I think he went down to 35 maybe for a little bit. I think he's back at 45. I'm not sure. But yeah, I feel like Cub Swanson again would be, a great fight for me. Korean Zombie, would have been cool to call out, with him being in Superboy's corner there. But yeah, it's really up to the UFC. I'm not in the best position to, make calls, especially after this last fight being a draw, and unfortunately with Dana, I don't know how Sean Shelby and everyone else feels, but Dana seeing the fight the way he did see it, hopefully he gets a chance to watch it again, and
Hmm.
and he'll have a better idea of how it went. But yeah, Cub Swanson, but I'll take anybody right now. I'm ready to go, and I'd love to fight again as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's a great call out. I love that one. So how soon can we see you again in the octagon? What's your desired timetable and how much of a layoff before the next fight?
Like the UFC is coming back here to Vegas in a couple weeks. I'm here right now. I'd love to stick around, but if not, I've heard the UFC might be coming to Canada soon. So that'd be perfect as well. Anything really. Like I said, like I'm back to training now, so I'd love to hop on anything soon. Actually, there's probably some sort of suspension from the athletic commission here in Las Vegas, like a 20-day or a 30-day or something like that.
Hmm.
So I probably have to wait until after that. But yeah, so a month, 2 months, whenever they can get me in.
Yeah, I know you're no stranger to fighting in Canada, so that would be something that'd be really cool again for you. So I gotta ask, for your next fight and for the future, are you gonna stay at 145 or do you plan on going back to 155? Kind of take me through your thought process.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay at 145. This again with this weight cut, it was again we had like a full training camp, which was amazing to make the weight. Before I was in the UFC, I fought generally a little more often, and I had generally full fight camps to make 145, so I never had any issues. Once I made it into the UFC, we ended up getting some short notice fights and different things like that, and I always made weight. Like I would make the weight no matter what. Just how much that would hinder my performance, I think it hindered it greatly. Crashing down to make sure I made weight and doing it, unhealthily. So now that I'm here, I had a full training camp again. I felt great in the fight. This is really where I want to stay at 145, and I'm just gonna have to be more, I guess, assertive in not taking short notice fights at 145. I plan to stay light anyways. Again, like I said, back to training, so I'm gonna keep my weight down nice and low, stay in shape, and hopefully get something soon.
Great. That sounds great to me. So speaking of 145, 155, this Saturday coming up, Volkanovski against Makhachev. Being that you fought in both weight classes, I'm sure you watched the guys fight a lot. How do you see it playing out, and what are your predictions? Who's going to win and how?
I think Makhachev's weight is going to be a big issue. I think going from 145 to 155 isn't always, that drastic. But when you come to wrestling, that's where we see the weight advantage, carry the most weight. So Islam being a great wrestler and being the bigger guy, I think it's really going to wear on Volkanovski. And I think we're probably going to see like a late second round TKO, if not early third round TKO, just from Islam wrestling Volkanovski, holding him down, wearing him out, and then start to chip away with ground and pound.
If this fight reaches the championship rounds, do you think that gives Volkanovski more of an advantage, or Islam?
I mean, it depends on how the fight goes. Again, if Islam wrestles him the whole time, I think Volkanovski's going to be pretty gassed by those championship rounds. If somehow Volkanovski can kind of avoid all the wrestling, then yeah, I definitely think Volkanovski's going to be able to move around and kind of outpoint and outstrike Islam in those later rounds. But again, he's going to have to be very weary of the wrestling in those first 2 or 3 rounds, and then round 4 and 5, he can probably take advantage of his smaller size and cardio and striking. But will it be a little too late to win on the scorecards? I think so.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really I can't wait to watch that fight. I'm sure you're excited too. So Kyle, that's about all I got for you today. Before we wrap it up, if you wanted to give a message to the fans watching and plug any social medias that you might have, or shout out any sponsors, go for it. The floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So after my fight, I tried to shout out my buddy Jimmy the Genie on Instagram. Check him out for all your MMA picks. My sponsors, Moose Delaney's, Sheath Underwear, Muskoka Renos, the Sport Lab, and then my fiance Claudia, my coaches Alin and Adrian for coming down with me, my gyms, Muskoka Martial Arts, House of Champions, and then all my friends, family, fans, everyone's been sending me a ton of love, a ton of support, with the draw and stuff and encouragement through that. So yeah, I appreciate everyone. You can check me out on Instagram at the Monster 705 _UFC, Twitter, the __ Monster, and Facebook, just Kyle the Monster Nelson. Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, you heard the man. So Kyle, thanks for taking the time to talk to me today, man. I really appreciate everything you had to say. And I'm gonna be looking out for future fight news for you, and hopefully maybe a rematch with Choi, maybe Cub Swanson. We'll have to see. But thank you for taking the time once again, and I hope you have a great rest of your time in Vegas.
Yeah, thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKickMMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.